I'm glad you chose RTV News today. I am Isabel Masozera. This is what we have top of our coverage. The government of Rwanda has consoled the families of those who died in the accident that killed 11 people and injured 50 others in Gasabo district. We start with Jessica Agasaro.
The accident that happened to Crops warehouse of the cooperative called Abaharanira Ubukire at around 8:30 this morning today. When it happened, there was people in the warehouse, some members of the cooperative and others workers who were hired to dry up the corn and put them outside. The president of this cooperative, Gashugi Telesfor, who survived the accident, is telling us more about what happened.
This morning, when work has started already, that's when the roof fell on us. I was there and I survived because I was outside. This was the center of corn production. By that time, there was some rain, which I guess that was the cause of the accident.
As soon as the accident happened, the security forces, health institutions, and the city of Kigali immediately provided assistance. Urujeni Martin, the deputy mayor of Kigali city in charge of development and community welfare, explains the cause of the accident. They came here to dry up their corn, and when they were doing it, that's when it rained and more people were in the warehouse. The roof fell on them and some people died, some survived. This cooperative was still new. They didn't have any insurance, but we will help them in every way. There were 11 people who died in the accident, and around 50 others were injured. 45 of them were taken to Masaka Hospital, 3 to Kanombe Military Hospital, and 2 others were taken to Kibagabaga Hospital. Those the RBA visited said they were getting better.
My shoulder broke, my back hurts, but the rest I'm fine. The services they gave me helped me in a good way, because when I first got there, I couldn't even sit.
My left rib are really broken and the roof fell on my arm. The Minister of Health, Dr. Sabin Sanzimana, went to visit the people who were injured where they were being assisted by doctors.
Most people who were injured in this accident had physical injury, and those who lost people, we sent some condolences to their families who were there at Masaka Hospital, which admitted so many people, and other hospitals in the city of Kigali admitted the rest of them. They are helping us so that the people with injuries will be treated. As the Ministry of Health, we are going to make sure that they are in good hands and were taken care of.
The government of Rwanda condoled to those who lost their loved ones in this accident, assuring that they will provide the necessary assistance to the families who lost their loved ones and those who were injured. He also announced that measures to monitor the quality of construction will be strengthened to prevent such accidents. The Abaharanira Ubukire cooperative consisted of 76 members. This group had been harvesting corn for 3 years and the trees had started to rot. Jessica Agasaro, RTV News.
Thank you, Jessica. Our prayers and thoughts are with the families that lost their loved ones. Now, moving on to regional matters, the East African community requested clarification from the DRC government after deporting 3 Rwandan officers who were serving at the East African Regional Force headquarters in Goma. Adams Kwizera unpacks more.
The Secretary General of the East African Community, Dr. Peter Mathuki, urged the government of Democratic Republic of Congo to urgently explain on their decision of deporting the 3 Rwandan officers in the East African Community Region Force. In this letter, wrote to the DRC Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Christopher Tundura, the EAC Secretary General noted that the EAC does not really understand the reason behind this decision, as this letter, issued on 1st February, states that the East African Community has learned and concerned on the decision of 30th January 2023 of expelling 3 Rwandan officers who were serving at the East African Regional Force. The East African Regional Force headquarters in Goma to support Regional Command Center was the decision of heads of state at their meeting on the peace progress in Eastern DRC, held on the sidelines of the COP27 last year on 7th November 2022 in El Sheikh, Egypt. The EAC Secretary General, Dr. Peter Mathuki, also reminded the DRC government that on 8th September 2022 concluded a status of forces agreements with the East African Community relating to the deployment of the East African Community Regional Force in the Eastern DRC, where under the Article 2 of those agreements states that the East African Community Regional Force and its personnel shall enjoy the privileges and immunities in their defense affairs. In this letter, which was leaked in various media outlets and social media, the Secretary General of the East African Community appointed a copy to the President of Burundi, Evariste Ndayishimiye, who is the chairperson of the East African Community Summit of Heads of State, the former President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, as the facilitator of the East African Community, and Major General Jeff Nyanga, Force Commander of the East African Regional Force. The expulsion of the 3 Rwandan officers who were in the East African Regional Force followed a protest against the East African Regional Force in DRC after only 2 months of their arrival. In addition to this, last month President Tshisekedi told the diplomats in Kinshasa that the East African Community and regional organizations that what they only do is to release announcements. Tomorrow, on 4th February 2023, the East African Heads of State will be convening in Bujumbura, Republic of Burundi, for the 20th Extraordinary Summit of the East African Community Heads of State, where on the agenda of this summit, there will be an evaluation of the security situation in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo and the way forward of that issue. Adams Kwizera, RTV News.
Thank you, Adams. We'll keep tracking this story and keep you updated. Now, moving on, according to Rwanda's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, signing of the agreement and those that are concerned with it, well, the discussions are underway in preparation for the signing of this agreement. Take a look. The leader of St. Karori Rwanga Youth Association says that the 21st century should not face the same problem as the 20th century because of the invention of these nuclear weapons.
The weapons invented in 20th century inspire the investors in the 21st century to always have that fear that one day there should be an outbreak of those weapons. Then we really appreciate that in this century we have treaties to stop these weapons.
In 2017, the United Nations approved the Treaty on the Prohibition of the Nuclear Weapons, which was effected on January the 22nd, 2021, after the 50th country ratified it. UN experts believe that eliminating these weapons is beneficial to the world because of the high effects due to its toxicity.
The number, if we went into detail about what a nuclear weapon does, the extraordinary impact that it would have in the immediate instant, an explosion that burns hotter than the sun, that has the blast and the electromagnetic pulse that wipes out everything for, depending on the size of the nuclear weapon, a radius of many kilometers. There's nothing that can be done. And the example that a lot of people look to is Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and we know what those weapons did to those cities. But we should keep in mind that the weapons that people have today, that the nuclear armed countries have today, are up to 300 times more powerful than the weapons that were used in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That was old technology. Those were the first atomic bombs. But since the 1950s, we have these bigger and bigger bombs, the hydrogen-based bombs, that make those weapons look like bows and arrows.
Rwanda has not yet signed to fully ratify this agreement, according to Mr. Robert Ragasana. The concerned authorities are, however, doing everything possible to sign and ratify this agreement.
The ministry which is supposed to share an opinion on its regulations is MINADEF. but they have not yet did due to that these agreements are new. According to the way the ratification is done, it takes time. You can't sign it immediately, even if you support the idea. So you have to take time. What you need to know is that we will sign it. Yes, it's a process, but it will be done.
It's a process, and is a
Currently, China, the United States of America, the United Kingdom, France, and Russia legally possess these nuclear weapons, although there are many other countries that possess these weapons illegally. You're still watching RTV. Now, some of the foreign investors appreciate Rwanda's simplified investment laws and regulations. Rwanda plans to attract another 200 new foreign investors to invest almost $600 million by 2025. Adam Squizera has more.
The PricewaterhouseCoopers, a company which helps attracting investors in Rwanda, this company stated that there are some major criteria an investor consider before investing in a certain country. Moses Nyabanda, the country senior director of this company in Rwanda, and Eric Koti, the chief executive officer of Access Pensions, an insurance and social security company, both affirms that there's some basis for all this to be achieved.
One is certainty around the investment environment, and that certainty is supported by the laws that the government is putting in place. There is no better place for an investor than where he knows this is the way the law will operate when I put in my investment. The other key elements of why people are choosing Rwanda more and more is around transparency, the issues around corruption and anti-bribery. Rwanda ranks very high around those in terms of ensuring that there's a landscape where you know that if I'm coming here, no one will ask me for a bribe. If that happens, action is immediately taken. So that's quite important.
So the investment climate in Rwanda is very impressive. Ease of doing business. I mean, it's the second place, easiest place to set up a business on the continent. The security situation of Rwanda is very impressive. We also look at the economy because your business has to thrive within an economy, and the economy has been relatively stable. I must say that the last 2 years have been quite difficult globally because of COVID and the Russian-Ukrainian war. But generally, over the last 4 to 5 years, we've been around, the economy has been relatively stable, and it's a society that works. It's a forward-looking society. The country is doing well, and everybody would want to be part of a country that is doing well. So that's one of the reasons we set up here, and so far so good.
There are 18 laws related to the operation of financial services that have been established in the last 3 years since the establishment of this institution. However, its goal is to have 40 laws by 2025 in order to attract foreign investors, as noted by the Chief Executive Officer of Rwanda Finance Limited, Nick Badije, and Holtens Mudenje, the Chief Operations Officer of Rwanda Finance Limited.
As we talk about inclusivity, we hope that the discussions we are going to be having this year is how do we see more funding going to youth-led projects? How do we see more funding going to female-founded businesses? How do we see more funding going to those that need it most? That's how we see finance being inclusive. It's also equally important that as a financial center, we are compliant, and part of our goals, our objectives by 2025, we want to have a financial center that is fully compliant to international norms.
We need to be able to facilitate our investors to move money or capital across borders. Now, when this initiative started in 2020, Rwanda had signed 10 tax treaties. Since then, Rwanda has signed 7 additional treaties. And last year, 4 of those 7 have been enacted. That is China, Luxembourg, Congo Republic, and Qatar. And what this means now is that whether you're an investor here, you can easily invest in Qatar or these countries without having to be taxed twice. So you see, it's now being open, more open for business.
Through the International Financial Center, 86 foreign investors have already invested in Rwanda in 2020, while Rwanda aims to attract other 200 new foreign investors who are expected to make an investment of $600 million by 2025. The Minister of Finance and Economic Planning, Dr. Uzziel Ndejimana, points out that attracting foreign investors in the country will also contribute to the growth of the country's economy.
Kigali International Financial Center plays a crucial role in realizing Rwanda's aspirations to become an upper middle-income country by 2035 and high-income country by 2050. Through KIFC, the country is looking to attract important regional and international investors and financial players to boost the country's economic and financial sector competitiveness. Dear friends, in 2017, the government of Rwanda approved the initiative to position and transform Rwanda into a financial services hub. When we look at the Rwandan economy, we feel optimistic as it continues to gain solid momentum despite the persistent global challenges. 10% growth was registered in the third quarter last year, 2022, which followed 7.5% growth in quarter two and 7.9% of growth in quarter one, 2022. This is a clear indication of a strong economic recovery post-COVID-19.
The economic growth of 10% in the third quarter of 2022, followed by 7.5% growth in the second quarter and 7.9% in the first quarter of 2022. This is a sign that there is an economic recovery after the COVID-19 pandemic. The report of the African Development Bank, AFDB, shows that Rwanda's economy this year of 2023 is ranked the fourth among the African countries with a high growth rate of 7.9%. Adams Kwizera, RTV News.
Thank you, Adams, for that reassuring report. And now we move on to more news. Youth are grateful they were actually brought together, and that is to be able to be told about their history and the governance that led Rwanda to the path it has taken. And they say it helps them better understand their responsibility to be able to protect what has been achieved. We get more from Jessica Agasaro.
Masabo Francois, who is a professor at the university and a conflict resolution expert, believes that the youth have the power to make the country a safe place.
Youth in the country is the force of the country. And the challenge every country has is to educate and to manage the force of the youth to make it useful and to make it positive and to work positively to the development of the country.
In order to better understand governance and protect the achievement of Rwandans, the coalition of political parties in Rwanda is organizing dialogues with different institutions. This conference was attended by the youth. Representing others, they looked together at the role of the youth in the good governance of Rwanda, where they were explained the history of Rwanda before and after the colonial era. And they explained the origin of the hatred that led Rwanda to the genocide against Tutsi. After discussions on various topics, some of the youth feel that they are there to fight for good governance and fulfill the responsibility that the country needs.
That I'm going to take home is how the government of Rwanda is supporting youth. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I will also share with them the summary of what we learned. Actually, we even have the handout details of what we are learning, so I will take time to go through the documents and then I share with my team. So I mean my co-workers and my neighbors, so that all youth in my village also gets a chance to know what the country is preparing for them, and then also to work together to not go into foreigners' culture and forget our culture. Because if we don't have our culture, we don't have a nation also.
In the past, there was a way that young people were taught. There was a way that they started training them in good governance, training them on how people lead, how a person has the courage to serve his country, the characteristic of a good leader, so you can grow up and have political education from the family.
In the family, we have many challenges and many problems, like conflict among the family. Maybe the conflict may be caused between among fathers and mother, but also the role of youth is needed in connecting resolving those conflict among those families. So our role as young people is to go there and we try to visit the family that have those conflicts and we try to solve them.
The spokesperson of the political parties in Rwanda, Honorable Glorious Uwinyiragira, says that the discussion like this are aimed at making the youth more visible to the country's program to reach the foot of those who are involved in a good governance of the country. The youth should also see that they have the responsibility to understand that they should build the country, but through being leaders. If they dare to be leaders and not think about fighting for it, in order to be a good leader, learn these lessons. There is a lecture that the forum teaches the youth, and they learn many things to prepare the youth to become a good leader. But these 4 topics you have seen in the forum is for the youth to be prepared to become good leaders and continue to protect what was done by their elders. In order to strengthen good governance, since 2010, the coalition of political parties has established a political and governance school where more than 1,300 young people have been trained to become future leaders. Jessica Agasaro, RTV News.
I am Isabel Masozera. Thanks for watching RTV News.